Up in the high-altitude desert of Ladakh, a political fire is absolutely raging. Now, for years, a peaceful movement has been simmering, but it's just reached its boiling point. So in this explainer, we're going to break down the protests, get into the core demands that are driving them, and really look at what this struggle means for the future of one of the world's most unique regions.
And that powerful quote, it comes from the face of the movement, activist Sonam Wangchuk. And yeah, if that name sounds familiar, he's the guy who inspired Rancho in the movie 3 Idiots. He's framing this whole thing as a youth-led uprising, a real fight for their future and their democracy.
But, this fight has just taken a really sharp, tragic turn. After 5 whole years of silent strikes and hunger fasts, things have just erupted into violence. We're talking reports of stone pelting, clashes with police, and even a local BJP office being set on fire.
And the cost, it's been absolutely devastating. During these clashes, following police firing, 4 people tragically lost their lives. This escalation, well, it marks a dark new chapter in a movement that really prided itself on being peaceful.
So, what's really driving all this anger? What's at the core of it all? Well, it all comes down to 2 fundamental demands that have been at the heart of this movement right from the very beginning.
Okay, so the movement is built on these 2 key pillars. First, full statehood for Ladakh, and second, protection under the Constitution's 6th schedule. Let's break down exactly what that means.
All right, so this first demand for statehood, it really comes from this feeling of being politically powerless. See, back in 2019, Ladakh was separated from the former state of Jammu and Kashmir. But unlike J&K, it wasn't given its own legislature. What that means is the people of Ladakh don't actually elect their own local government. Instead, they're governed by a lieutenant governor who was appointed by the central government.
And that second demand, it's all about getting protection under something called the 6th schedule of the Indian Constitution. This is a special provision, and it's specifically designed to grant autonomy and to safeguard the land, the culture, and the unique identity of India's tribal regions.
And this chart right here, this is exactly why that demand is so incredibly important. Over 90% of Ladakh's population is tribal. So supporters argue that this constitutional safeguard is absolutely essential to protect Ladakh's fragile environment and its very distinct cultural heritage.
And what really adds a layer of frustration to all of this is that this wasn't some new idea. Protection under the 6th schedule was a specific promise made by the ruling BJP in its 2019 election manifesto. 5 years later, protesters say that promise is still unfulfilled.
But it's not just about politics. There's this really deep economic frustration just simmering under the surface. I mean, look at this chart. It's pretty stark, right? Youth unemployment in Ladakh is sitting at around 22%, which is literally double the national average. This economic anxiety, especially for young people, is a huge source of the anger we're seeing. So, as you can imagine, all of this has led to 2 completely different stories about why the recent violence happened. For the protesters, it's a story of pure frustration, but for the government, it's a case of incitement.
So on one side, you have protesters and Wangchuk arguing that this is just the inevitable result of 5 years of broken promises and being ignored. But on the other side, the government claims that talks were actually moving forward, but that politically motivated groups, with Wangchuk at the center, incited a mob to sabotage the whole process.
The government's accusation is actually really specific. The Home Ministry has officially stated that Sonam Wangchuk is to blame for the violence. They're claiming he misled people and provoked them by referencing other youth-led movements like the Arab Spring.
But Wangchuk, well, he tells a completely different story. While he did call for peace right after the violence broke out, he's adamant that what happened wasn't because of his words. He says it was a spontaneous overflow of years of frustration from young people who feel they've been given fake promises and have just been ignored time and time again.
And as you'd expect, this clash of narratives has now escalated big time. The government has taken formal action. They've launched an inquiry by the Central Bureau of Investigation, or CBI, against Sonam Wangchuk.
And it's not just one thing. The pressure is really mounting from all sides. The CBI is investigating his institute's foreign funding. Its license for that funding has been canceled. The institute's land lease was also canceled. And Wangchuk himself has been arrested for allegedly inciting a mob.
Now, for his part, Wangchuk is pushing back hard. He defends the funding, saying the money they're talking about was just legitimate payment for services his institutes provided to international bodies like the UN.
He keeps emphasizing that his organizations provide free education and that he sees all of this as a way to pressure him.
So, after 5 years of activism, failed talks, and now, sadly, violence, where does this all leave Ladakh? What's really at stake here?
I mean, just look at how we got here. It all started back in 2019 with a huge political shift and a major political promise. That was followed by 5 years of peaceful advocacy, meetings, hunger strikes, all of it culminating in the tragic violence and the legal battles we're seeing today.
At the end of the day, this conflict is about so much more than just politics. It's about trying to preserve a culture and a way of life in one of the world's most sensitive and beautiful regions. And when political promises and popular protests collide this violently, it leaves us with a huge question. What does the future hold for Ladakh's truly unique identity?